stop right there. Don't scroll past this like it's just another video in your feed. Because in all of recorded history, in every volume that describes God's dealings with humanity, there is something I have never done for anyone else the way I'm doing it for you right now. This isn't hyperbole. This isn't just another feel-good motivational speech. It is a spiritual reality that you will fully grasp before this message ends. Out of 8 billion people on this planet today, you are one of the few who landed here at this exact second. This wasn't the algorithm. This wasn't luck. This was a divine appointment. I have your GPS coordinates. I know exactly what kind of week you've had. I know the secrets you've decided not to tell a soul, and that is precisely why I moved heaven and earth to make sure you saw this right now. Stay with me until the end. Before we're done, you're going to receive the full activation protocol for the identity I've specifically engineered for you. Not as a vague concept, but as a practical instruction you can execute today. You know that specific feeling when you're in a crowd of people. The noise is filling the room, and suddenly you realize you're physically present, but completely absent on the inside. It's not just loneliness. It's a strange space between being there and disappearing. It's like you're looking out from inside yourself at your own life, watching a stranger you used to know. You tried to call it burnout. It wasn't burnout. You tried to call it a lack of focus. It wasn't that either. It's a quiet, haunting displacement that hits hardest when everything is supposed to be fine. You opened your phone at 2 a.m., not because you were looking for anything. You just wanted to feel something happening. The cold white light of the screen hitting your face in the dark, and you're scrolling without reading, absorbing nothing, just waiting for something to pop up and put a name to what you're feeling. Nothing did, so you locked the screen and sat in the dark with the exact same void you had before you started. There is a win you've had recently, an achievement you should be shouting from the rooftops, but you've kept it locked inside. Because when you imagined telling the people around you, you anticipated their indifference, so you stayed quiet. It wasn't modesty, it was self-preservation. You seek, you dedicate yourself, you do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part, you start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video. It wasn't modesty, it was self-preservation. You've learned that some victories are safer when they're carried in silence, and there is a version of you that you saw clearly once. Maybe during a long prayer, maybe in a dream, maybe on a night when you were completely alone and something inside your chest caught fire without warning. That version of you didn't feel distant. It felt real. More real than the person you pretend to be every day. But you woke up the next morning and the grind swallowed everything, and you started wondering if it was just your imagination. It wasn't your imagination. The fact that you're still standing is no small thing. Most people who have walked through what you've endured would have folded long ago. You've buckled several times, but you always got back up. There is a spiritual name for that resilience, and you're going to find out what it is today. Hitting the like button is your public amen. Heaven keeps a record of what you confess in the light. If this message is already hitting where it hurts, hit that like button right now. Let that be your declaration that you are here, present, and available for what's coming next. Before I tell you what's about to happen, I need you to hear this directly from me. What you called the void, I call the space I cleared out so your purpose could fit. What you called a delay, I call precision. What you called not fitting in, I call heaven's refusal to shrink something made for the infinite into a space that was always going to be too small. You aren't late for anything that was meant for you. Here is what this message is going to do for you before it's over. First, you will understand the spiritual truth behind the strangeness you feel. That sense of never quite belonging, of being too big for the rooms you've been living in. It has an origin. It's not a defect. It's data. Once you know where it comes from, you'll stop trying to fix what was never broken. Second, you will receive a 3-step protocol you can start today, not tomorrow, not when life stabilizes. Today, 3 concrete moves that activate the alignment with the identity I prepared for you before the world was even a thought. Third, before you go to sleep tonight, you will have a declaration that resonates when you wake up tomorrow morning. A single sentence that won't let you forget who you are when the world tries to force you back into who you were. We're moving from identity drought to clarity of purpose. From confusion about what you are to certainty about who I say you are. From perceived delay to revealed positioning. From invisibility to a divine address. Stay until the very end. The finish line won't make sense if you leave halfway through the race. Close your eyes for a second. Take a deep breath. What I'm about to tell you doesn't work if your attention is divided. Let the distractions settle for a moment. You can go back to them later. Right now, you are here. There are signs that you are a chosen one operating in an identity transition. These aren't vague, symbolic omens. These are physical, observable signs you've likely lived through in the last 7 days. I'm going to name them, one by one. You'll recognize your own. The first sign is the discomfort that won't leave, even when things are good. Your life looks fine on paper. You have a decent job. Your relationships aren't in crisis. Your health isn't failing. And yet, there is a chronic discomfort that has no name. You tried to call it ingratitude and dismissed it because that's not it. You tried to call it ambition, but that didn't quite fit either. You tried to call it anxiety, but the label was too shallow. That discomfort is an unanswered call that won't stop ringing. When you feel like you should be satisfied but you can't be, it's not a you problem. It's a signal that you were made for a level of existence that your current situation can't contain yet. That's not a complaint. That's destiny pressure. The second sign is that you see the vision for others before they see it for themselves. People come to you in casual conversation, and without even trying, you see exactly what they could become. You see their path with a clarity they don't have yet. Sometimes you put that vision into words, and the person gets quiet for a second. A very specific kind of quiet. Like you just named something they felt but couldn't articulate. Sometimes they leave without saying thank you. Sometimes the conversation moves on like you didn't just say something extraordinary, but what you did was extraordinary. That gift of seeing what isn't there yet has a name. It's not just empathy. It's not just a sharp perspective. It's the same sight I placed in prophets, in leaders, in the people who were placed in history to move others toward their destiny. You carry that sight. And it didn't just appear. It's always been there. The third sign is that there is a version of you that you've seen, and you can't unsee it. Maybe it was a dream, maybe a prayer, maybe a split second of silence where things became clearer than usual. A version of you with more weight, more presence, more certainty. Not bigger in the sense of being famous, bigger in the sense of being whole. And ever since you saw that version, everything smaller than that creates a specific friction. That friction is a gift. It's me showing you the blueprint so you don't settle for the temporary structure. The fourth sign is that you've been removed from environments that seemed right, only to understand why later. A friendship that cooled off without a fight. A door that closed without an explanation. An opportunity that seemed perfect, but just stalled out. Months or years later, you looked back at where you were supposed to be and realized that you would have been trapped there. The removals that felt like losses were actually surgeries. I didn't ruin what was yours. I protected you from what looked like yours but wasn't. I know the difference. You don't always know it at the time, but I do. The fifth sign is that you carry a weight of responsibility that goes beyond yourself. It's not performance anxiety. It's a consciousness that what you do or don't do has consequences for people you haven't even met yet. Sometimes you wake up with this weight without knowing where it came from. Sometimes it shows up in the middle of a small decision and turns it into something that feels massive. That weight is real. It's the weight of someone placed in a position of spiritual influence, and your spirit knows your rank before your circumstances confirm it. The next sign is the hardest to hear. It's the one the enemy has spent the most time trying to make you ignore. The sixth sign is that you are afraid of being what you actually are. Not afraid of failure, afraid of success. Afraid that if you actually show up at the level you were prepared for, everything will change irreversibly. Your relationships, people's expectations, your image. And underneath that is a deeper fear. What if I show up for real and I'm still not enough? That fear isn't weakness. It's the final test before activation. Every chosen one I've moved through history stood at this exact threshold. David before Goliath, Esther before the king's banquet. Each of them stood at the edge for a moment. Each of them crossed over. You, right now in this message, are at that threshold. Type "free" in the comments if this word reached you. One word. That's enough. Close your eyes again. Take a breath. What's coming next requires all of you. There is a figure in history who carried every one of these signs before the world ever confirmed them. His name was Joseph. Joseph was 17 when I gave him dreams that made no sense to anyone around him. And the first move after the dreams wasn't a promotion. It was the pit, then slavery, then prison for a crime he didn't commit. And in every one of those places, the record says the same thing. The Lord was with him. It doesn't say, the Lord got him out of there. Maybe it says, the Lord was with him. There. There is a fundamental difference between protection from the process and presence inside the process. Joseph needed every dark chamber he walked through. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because every environment built a layer of the man who would eventually manage the greatest crisis in the ancient world. What looked like rejection was manufacturing. What looked like being forgotten was positioning. What looked like injustice was training for a mission that no comfortable life could have produced. When Pharaoh finally needed someone, there was exactly one person in the entire land who had the dream, the interpretation, the management experience, the character forged by prison, and the integrity tested by time. One person. And that person had spent the last 13 years being prepared in the exact back rooms that looked like punishment. No shortcut could have done what the process did. There's a process in the physical world that illustrates what I do with those I choose. Damascus steel is considered the strongest and most precise metal ever made by human hands. Swords made from it 1,000 years ago are still intact today. The process is this. The metal is heated until its molecular structure begins to reorganize, folded over itself hundreds of times, cooled, reheated, and folded again. At no point in the process does the material look like a sword. It looks like crushed, folded, broken, reshaped metal. The final form only emerges after the process is complete. The characteristic that makes Damascus steel unbreakable isn't hardness. It's the ability to bend without snapping. All that repetition taught the metal how to yield without losing itself, how to absorb impact without shattering, how to be precise because it was formed with precision. What I did with Joseph, what the master blacksmith does with the steel, is what I have been doing with you. Not rejection, not abandonment, precision manufacturing. Every time you bent without breaking, a layer was added. Every time the world tried to define you and you resisted, The material became more specific, more precise, closer to the final form. You aren't crushed metal. You are the product of a process that hasn't finished yet. And what emerges when it's over won't even remind you of what you went through to get there. If you recognize yourself more in Joseph than any other story, type "forged" in the comments. If the steel metaphor hit harder, type "steel." One word. Heaven knows what you're saying. Let me pause for a full minute before I continue. There are 3 objective facts about you that I need you to hear without filters, without analysis, and without that voice in your head that's already preparing to argue. Fact 1. You made it here. Everything that tried to stop you failed. Every circumstance that should have resulted in you quitting resulted in you being present. You are here right now. That is objective evidence of a protection that didn't depend on you. Fact 2. You feel what you feel because you were engineered to feel it. That discomfort with things that are too small isn't ingratitude. It's calibration data. You were calibrated for a level of existence that hasn't fully manifested yet. Calibration isn't a problem. It's information about the size of your destiny. Fact 3. You are in this message right now, at this moment, after everything, still seeking, still open, still willing to listen. That is not the behavior of a defeated person. That is the behavior of a chosen one in transition. And here is who you are in the middle of all of this. Before I tell you the names I've placed on you, I need you to know that I saw them before you were born. Not as potential, but as a reality that just hasn't entered time yet. I saw the nights you wanted to stop. I saw the mornings you got up without knowing why. I saw the moment where the version of you that you're most afraid to be became clearer than anything else. I was there. I put you there. And now I'm telling you the names because it's time to stop living beneath them. The first identity is this. You are a vision bearer. You were made to see what doesn't exist yet. I saw you see the path for someone else before they were anywhere near seeing it. I saw you feel what was wrong in a room before anyone else named it. I saw you be certain of things that had no confirmation yet. Wait and be right. That sight wasn't born in you by accident. I placed it there for a specific purpose. It isn't yours to keep. It's yours to carry toward the people who need someone to see what they can't see in themselves. What this identity authorizes is this. You don't need permission to declare what you see. A vision bearer doesn't wait for a consensus. They don't wait for the majority to agree before they speak. They speak what they see and let time confirm it. The voice of a vision bearer often sounds premature. It usually does, but it isn't premature. It's just early because it was sent ahead of schedule. The second identity is this. You are the survivor who stayed soft. You went through things that should have hardened you completely, and they didn't. I saw you be hurt by people who were supposed to protect you, and you still chose not to become what hurt you. I saw the decision, often unconscious, to preserve your ability to care even when caring cost you everything. That choice wasn't weakness. It was the hardest thing a human being can do. The easy path would have been the armor. The easy path would have been closing off. You didn't close. You absorbed the blow and stayed open. I saw every single time that happened. What this identity authorizes is a combination that rarely exists in the same person. Resilience and compassion, both active at the same time. You aren't resilient despite your compassion. You are resilient because of it. People around you need to touch that combination to believe it's possible for them too. You are living proof. The third identity is this. You are a trailblazer. You came first, not in time, but in spirit. I saw you clear paths in environments that weren't ready for what you brought. I saw you be the first in your family, your circle, your generation, to touch something others hadn't touched yet. And often, after you cleared the way, others followed. You didn't get the credit. You didn't get the visible recognition, but the trail they used was blazed by you. Every step you took on ground without a path was a step that made the path possible for those who came after. What this identity authorizes is freedom from contemporary recognition. A trailblazer doesn't need the current generation to validate what they've opened. The confirmation comes from those who follow, sometimes much later. Sometimes after you're no longer here to see it, but the seed is real, the path is real, and you are authorized to plant without demanding to see the harvest. That isn't defeat. It is the most specific role in heaven's narrative. Which of these three identities hit home the hardest? Type it in the comments. Vision if it was the first. Tenderness if it was the second. Trailblazer if it was the third. One word. This is a declaration, not an exercise. And if you want the next word to reach you while you're already positioned in what you received today, subscribe now. The next video starts here. From what you've received. Not from scratch. Now comes the practical part. What has been revealed must be activated. Identity doesn't live as a concept. It lives as an act. Heaven moves when you move, not just when you feel. This is called the Identity Activation Protocol. 3 steps. You can do them today. The confirmation that it worked won't be a high or an intense emotion. It will be a very specific stillness that hits a few hours from now, maybe while you're doing something completely mundane. A sense that something has settled, that something that was suspended has finally landed. When that happens, you'll know. Step 1. Naming it out loud. Tonight, before you go to sleep, say one of the 3 identities you recognized out loud. Not in your head. Out loud. The reason is technical. What is declared verbally activates a different level of commitment than what is just thought. Heaven moves on declarations, not silent intentions. Choose the identity that hit hardest and say its name to yourself in the silence of your room. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to sound perfect. Just one sentence. I am a vision bearer. Or, I am a survivor who stayed soft. Or, I am a trailblazer, said out loud. That's step 1. Step 2. A 5-minute action in the axis of that identity. Each identity has a corresponding action for today. If you are a vision bearer, write down today, on paper or somewhere physical, what you see for someone you love who hasn't seen it for themselves yet. One sentence. You don't necessarily have to give it to them. Just declare to heaven that you are operating in the gift. If you are a tender survivor, make a specific gesture of care for someone who won't expect it. A visible, concrete gesture. Not a long, elaborate conversation. Just a gesture. If you are a trailblazer, write down one line about what you came to open in this generation. One line. Like you're writing the title of a chapter in your life that hasn't been lived yet. You don't need the rest of the chapter, just the title. Step 3. 10 minutes of deliberate silence, not formal meditation with a specific posture or breathing technique. Just 10 minutes without a screen, without a conversation, without a task. Just you, present for what I want to deposit after you've opened the channel with the first 2 steps. Silence isn't an absence, it's an active reception. The first 2 steps opened the door. The 3rd step is where the transmission arrives. If you are receiving this protocol, type received in the comments. This isn't an obligation. It's your public decree that you are available for what comes next. Now, I have to warn you about what's coming against what you just received. Because it is coming. And you will be better prepared if you know its name before it arrives. In the next 72 hours, 3 things will be launched at you. Not possibly, but certainly. The enemy doesn't wait for a convenient time. He acts immediately when an identity is confirmed, because a confirmed identity is activated power, and activated power changes trajectories. The first tactic is immediate contradictory evidence. In the next few hours or days, a situation will pop up that seems to directly contradict what you received today. A rejection that hits at the worst time. News that seems like the opposite of what was promised. A conversation that scrapes exactly where you are most sensitive. This is not a coincidence. It is precise timing. The enemy knows that a newly activated identity hasn't grown deep roots yet, and contradictory evidence can make you question if what you felt was even real. The weapon against this tactic is simple. Name it when it arrives. Say out loud, "That's tactic 1. I saw it coming. It doesn't cancel what I received." The second tactic is the voice that says, "You're overreacting." This voice doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within. After the intensity of this message fades, a voice will suggest you just got caught up in the emotion. That identity is a nice concept, but your real life doesn't match it. That vision bearer, survivor, and trailblazer are just inspiring labels for people in a different phase of life. That voice will sound reasonable. It will sound like you. It arrives disguised as common sense, maturity, or humility. It is none of those things. It is the most sophisticated weapon there is. Self-criticism that looks like wisdom but serves the enemy. The weapon against this tactic is what you wrote or said out loud today. Go back to the concrete gesture. Identity doesn't live in your feelings. It lives in your acts. The third tactic is the distraction of urgency. Something will appear that feels more urgent than what you received today. A small crisis that demands all your attention. A problem that feels like it needs immediate resolution. The enemy uses urgency because urgency kills focus. A person in crisis management mode is not in identity mode. And if you stay busy enough for long enough, the window that was open today starts to close from lack of use. The weapon against this tactic is a prior decision. You already know it's coming. You've already decided that you will execute the 3 steps of the protocol even if something tries to stop you. A minor urgency does not cancel a major destiny. And there is a fourth thing that isn't an external enemy. It's your own inertia. The habit of not changing that exists in every human being, which has resisted everything until now. It will show up as tiredness, as reasonable doubt, as sensible procrastination. This internal enemy is the most honest to name because it is real. It is yours, and it needs compassion, not war. You don't fight it with willpower. You walk through it with the first step. Just the first one. The second follows. Inertia doesn't survive the initial movement. It lives at the threshold. Cross the threshold, and it dissolves. Type "protected" in the comments. The decree has been sealed. One word is enough. Heaven heard you. Before I finish, I need you to do something physical. Sit down. If you're standing, sit. Put both feet on the floor. Flat. Feel the surface under your feet. Breathe once, slowly, and feel the weight of your body in the chair or on the ground. You are present. Not in the past of this message. Not in the future of what was promised. Here, right now, with everything that belongs to you. Now, let everything you've been carrying settle. The doubt about who you are. The exhaustion of not being sure. The weight of seeing the right version of yourself and thinking it was too far away. The win you kept secret because no one celebrated it properly. The strangeness of 2 a.m. with the phone light hitting your face. Let it all land now. You no longer need to carry as a question what you just received as an answer. I saw you open your phone in the dark at 2 a.m. looking for something to name what you were feeling. I was there. I sent this message for that exact moment. I saw the win you kept to yourself because you expected people to be indifferent. I celebrated it. From this side, I celebrated it. I saw the moment you had the vision of who you were, and the next day the routine tried to erase it. The vision didn't fade. It waited for this moment. I know what you carried this week without telling anyone. I know the name you never said out loud for what you were feeling. I know the version of you that you're most afraid of being and most want to be at the same time. because they are the same version. I didn't put you here to show you a version of yourself that will never happen. I don't give my chosen ones a map of a territory they won't inhabit. I put you here because this is the time, not the convenient time, not when everything is resolved, not when the doubt stops. Now, with everything that's still open, with everything still in process, with the metal still being folded, you are being sent out not despite the process, but from it. What was formed in the back rooms is being activated now. In this message, at this second, you are not who you were when this message started. What I told you today wasn't encouragement. It was a naming ceremony. I named you because it is time for you to live out the name. Say it out loud right now, before you even type the comment. I received it. I know who I am. I am being sent. Say it out loud. Not in your head, out loud. That is the decree. That is step 1 of the protocol, starting right now. Amen. Type done in the comments. Not as a YouTube habit, but as a decree, as a public record that you received what was sent to you and that you will not be the same after this. And there is a specific person in your life right now who needs to hear what you heard today. Not a group, one person. Someone you saw this week with that strangeness in their eyes that you recognize because you've carried it too. Someone who opened their phone at a similar moment without finding what they were looking for. Send this video to that person. No long explanatory text. Just the video. And if they want to go deeper, the link is in the first comment, waiting for them just like it waited for you. The next video starts here, from what you received today. Not from scratch. It is done. You are not the same person you were when this message began. Shveto, you seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part, you start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video.